Rather than like maybe old school Smelly would just sit here rigid and just pull, I'm trying to like get into some different positions and move different angles, try out different things. What's it feel like if my body's turned this way and I pull? What's it feel like if my body's turned this way and I pull? What if I don't rotate the hips at all and I just leave them here and row? What if I do rotate them and I would get the shoulders to maybe not only point to this wall, but to see if I can get them all the way back the other way. I can even push with this hand. Because I'm running, right? So I'm trying to get some of this to like open up and not be so stiff. Kind of fun too, just to get in different positions, move around a bunch. There's no reason why I can't do some rows down here. You know, it's a different balance, and maybe this won't give me the hugest lats ever, but it has me in a squat position. It's challenging some balance. It's just fun. To me, it's just fun, like to do stuff that's a little different. There's really no like right or wrong to some of this stuff. This is just like experimentation. So now I got a pretty good amount of weight on there. But this acts as like a nice counter. So those of you that struggle to squat with your heels down, you might just need a good counterbalance, because look at how easy that is for me to get into this position. I can get my butt all the way to the ground, but I have to rock back, and I can rock forward and get back up. I can hang here and do some rowing, or I can even pancake to make knees over toes proud. And you can see, kind of cool, like you can see where I got holes in my game, right? Like some people can get their shoulders all the way to the ground here. For me, it's gonna be super difficult. Hey Miles, what's up, buddy? And I also feel a crazy stretch in like the groin. This is a way to stretch with some weights. Some of it sometimes works and feels pretty good. Other times you're like, I'm not sure about that, but this is how you find stuff out. All the exercises that you ever learned from Arnold or from Ed Cohn or your favorite lifter, favorite influencer, they're all made up. So why can't we just play around the gym a little bit more here and there and realize that this is really just a practice, right? And you can kind of practice and sort of do it whatever ways that you'd like. See if I can get up from here. Wow. It's like, what did that work? I don't know, but it's exercise. It feels good. I've been using these base blocks a little bit lately, enjoying them. And pretty easy, just doing some Just doing some push-ups on here, working on the push-up game. And, you know, I can kind of move these whatever way. You can also adjust these, make them different heights. Those of you that want to get into some maybe gymnastics moves and stuff, some people will do like L seats or L sits and stuff like that on here. But I like this setup. I actually been talking about it forever. I just need to order some of these for my home too, because I found that when these are just sitting here, it's really easy to just be motivated to do some push-ups. Try to figure out your intent for the day. My intent for today is to get some really good movement in. And so because of that, I'm not doing these explosively. I'm not trying to do these super fast. Just trying to get good movement in and maybe rest and breathe a little bit at the bottom here. Maybe try to kind of lean off to one side a bit. Maybe try to do these wide. Like maybe I'll go out here because I've never tried this before. Maybe I'll just do it, you know, maybe partial range. There you go, a little less. That might be too far. Go in here. And that's pretty challenging for me once I get down and the elbows start to get past the midline of the body. So it's what's kind of nice about something like this. I just found something that I could work on. This would be a great movement for me to pursue. Can even move these around as you're going. Kind of walk and bear crawl. It's like a little easier than a regular bear crawl, but nice introductory movement to somebody like myself that maybe isn't moving great, very tight. I'm gonna come back here and I can give it a try to pick the legs up. They don't want to go anywhere. I could do some dips. When you're doing your movements and you find yourself getting stuck, you want to work on breathing through them. So a lot of times you'll go to do something and you'll hold your breath. Once you hold your breath, you want to try to go. So you can move your way all the way through the exercise. Kaboom. Go over here. One of my favorites, the hunker-in stool. This thing's great. Got a little spring load so that when you sit into it, you will start to get a really good stretch once the springs kind of release. And the way that you're supposed to sit on this thing is in a position where you could stand up from it fairly easily. So I'll show you. Let me see with this pad. I'll actually show you first that I cannot make it. I cannot get down here. I don't know how tall this is. It's probably about a foot off the ground. But the only way for me to get there, I'll show you again. I can't, even with my hands out and stuff, I can't really get there. But I can get there if I hold on to something and I allow myself to kind of use this as like a pivot point. And now I can get all the way down there. I can kind of shove the knees out. Try to stack the shoulders over the hips, and now I can kind of safely get here. But one of the reasons why I struggle with this so much is I don't have great internal rotation of my hips. So like, see how my knees are just out? This is my only option. My knees have to be out, And because I'm externally rotated so much, my back is in some pretty good like flexion here. And if I try to force some, neutral spine's not too bad, but if I try to force some, arching, I try to arch into it, I go from flexion to extension. You can see I can't really do it, right? Very difficult for me to do it at the moment. So things that I can do is I can push the knees in gently, push them in gently, but there's not only like, it's not only tight, it hurts on this side. So when something hurts, like that's not really, we don't want stuff to hurt. Pain level of 2 or 3 out of 10, not bad, but anything starting to get higher than that starts to get sketchy. So it's just kind of interesting. I don't even know how important this is for me to be able to squat down this low like this, but it's something that I'm working on, because if I can have better internal rotation of the hips, and if I can squat lower, I'm thinking like that could potentially show up in my gait or my running, but I could also be dead wrong. But anyway, it's just a fun thing to do. It's some good exercise for me, and I have a hunker-in stool next to my TV in my house, and I actually sit there and I eat off of this often, because sitting in this position is really great for your digestion, and also great for not overeating, because there's actually some pressure on the tummy. So now there's going to be a pretty cool difference with this now that I altered it slightly for me. I'm going to sit on the stool and actually sort of relax there. And so now I'm in a much more comfortable position. I can also let the hands go. But when I let the hands go, I still have to kind of actively, so I'm not, this thing, the hunker-in stool, isn't made as a seat. It is a stool that you're supposed to kind of utilize as a tool for mobility. And so I can kind of sit here and move around. And I have fallen off of here before, but luckily the fall is not very far, right? And so I could just sit here and chill, and I watch TV and I eat while I'm sitting in this thing, just as a way. Mark Bell has been tight for many, many years, and I'm not really thinking that I'm going to make myself super mobile. I don't even know if that should be a goal, but I know that I can improve. And so every chance I get, within reason, I try to take that moment to improve. So right now when I do this, great stretch right here. I'm not huge into stretching. I don't necessarily stretch often, but now I'm starting to do it at my house whenever I'm watching TV. Sometimes, like I said, I'm just eating, which I do a lot of eating. I probably do watch TV, on average, I probably watch TV 90 minutes, 2 hours or so in the evening. I'm a normal person-ish, and I do some normal stuff. You can also just practice some squats off of here, and I can try to, I find that when I sit, and I'm really sitting on here with the intent of let's just say I'm not going to use that, and I'm really kind of concentrating on that it's still, even though I raised it up, it's still a challenge for me. So sometimes what I have to do is there's regressions, right? Sometimes you have to have a regression. Stack her up a little bit more. Obviously, you could put something on top of it, but I think it's more stable to have something underneath it. So now, just squat down here, push the knees out. I should be able to get there. Whoa. Move forward a little bit. You guys are probably watching this being like, why the fuck can't he get down there? Well, I don't think everybody that's squatted 1,000 pounds is maybe as stuck together as me, but probably not too far off. So there we go. I'm on there now. And that's feeling pretty good. And when I stay in this loaded squat position here, when I stay here, I can feel a good stretch, and it feels good. It feels pretty good on my back too, actually, because the back is rounded quite a bit. There we go. Old school seated row. People ask a lot of times about like, hey, should I do my rows, you know, real upright posture? Should I do my rows where I use a little momentum? And I always just think, you know, there's many, many ways of doing this. So why not incorporate all of them? So for me, again, the main intent for today is to move a lot. So I'm going to try to move this bar maybe past my feet a little bit, and I can do it with my knees bent pretty good. That's a nice challenge, and I can sneak in some reps, and then I can do it with my knees a little straighter. I can take my time. I can go one side. I can kind of roll this around, work on that practice breathing. Maybe the knees are bent more. Maybe we're going to stretch the groin. Kind of get about here. Get a good stretch in the groin. So now we're starting to do multiple things. And somebody might think like, oh, you know, don't really move your back like that on an exercise like that. But, you know, what if you're just using minimal weights, right? This isn't heavy, so. If it's heavy, you might want to tighten your range of motion up a bit. But if it's light, why not open it up? And then also, single leg. Those of you with tight hamstrings could simply, those of you who hate stretching could simply just start doing your rows like this. And if you're doing a seated row once a week, you're getting in some good hamstring stretching. Do maybe 6 sets of this. There'd be 3 for each side. It's pretty good work. There's ways to microdose all this stuff, and it's really cool. See if we can get a little sunlight. Windy as hell out here, so hopefully we don't die. Just get in the sun when you can. There's our YouTube tower right there. Thank you so much, Ryan Soper, Andrew Zaragoza, for installing that. That's the way you guys get to see all these videos. So I've been working on this a little bit. Not good at it, not that great at it, but work in progress. Maybe a few this way. Not good at one leg, but haven't practiced up enough on it. My boy Nsima mentioned frustration, but where there's frustration, he said, you can build some resilience, and where there's frustration, there's most likely over time going to be a lot of growing that happens. So it's kind of hard to grow without frustration. Learning something new, trying something new, you're probably going to be frustrated with it. Boom, right back to it. So you do a little rope flow type stuff. Just trying to move with the rope. This is something that you could teach So your aunt, your uncle, your grandma, your grandpa, your friend that's been injured for a while, your friend that maybe is pretty overweight and having a hard time getting into any sort of exercise, they can literally just have their head flow and go with the rope. And then maybe they can get their body to go and flow with the rope. It's called rope flow. I was introduced to this by David Weck. I'm sure other people have done it over the years, but you probably see Nsima do this. I saw Juji Mufu recently do this, and you realize how great that guy can move. Pretty cool. But you'll see how athletic or unathletic or stiff somebody is just from this exercise. But it's like, shit, man, how many calories does that burn? You know, or even literally just sitting here like this, and you're like, man, I'm embarrassed. I don't know how to jump rope. It's too weird. Well, maybe you just swing this thing around like this is a form of exercise, and then maybe just periodically, a couple jumps. Maybe you're big, maybe you're heavy, maybe that hurts. Just do real easy. Maybe you don't even get off the ground. You know? I think it's about 2 years now, maybe 3, I'm not sure, from when I did my first marathon. March, as of about 2 years ago, was the first half marathon that I ever did. And it wasn't pretty, you know, it took me a long time. I think it took me, I think it took me like 3.5 hours or something. I mean, something ridiculous. It took me forever. It's irrelevant, you know, to me it doesn't matter. Now, luckily for me, I have a basis with another sport, something physical that I did that I could feel good about. Not everybody has that. So I understand the apprehension, and I'm not saying to go sign up for a marathon or half marathon, but I do think you're gonna have to get started somehow, some way. And when you get started, the likelihood that you're gonna be good at it is just really low. It's very, very low. I am going to do a little bit of like functional patterns, movements, some things I learned from a buddy of mine. I got to set that up, so I'll take a minute, but I'm also in between that going to do some jumps, probably some med ball throws. There's not really going to be much focus on any sort of hypertrophy for today. I'll continue to use those base blocks because that was feeling good to open up the shoulders. So you'll kind of see how I like to set up a little bit of plyometric work. Rule number 1 to jumping is like, make sure the area that you're going to work in is cleared out. You don't want anything weird on the ground that you might step on or you might clip. If there's just any possibility that anything weird could happen, like take a moment, clean the area up, and then proceed from there, because I've just seen it happen way too many times. Even with lifting, back in the day, there would be like this, and there would be, you know, this and this would be like on the ground. And sure enough, you know, somebody went to spot somebody and then they're going like this, and they're like, I've seen people fall, I've seen people get hurt, I've seen all kinds of stupid stuff happen just because we were so fat and so lazy that we couldn't just clean up the area real quick. Instead, what we did is we like kick it around, you know, and the next person would kick it, next person would kick it. It just got kicked around all the time. So get the area clear. Sounds like such common sense, but when you've been surviving in this game as long as me, that's how you do it. You survive by thinking a little bit ahead of time. So this is the lowest implement I'm going to jump on for today. And so this is a great place to start. Start real lazy, start real easy. Boom. When you're working on some jumping and you're trying to actually have it be a skill that's going to transfer over into you being explosive, we don't need to do that many jumps, and we don't really want to utilize it as part of conditioning necessarily. So you don't want to just be hopping around sort of aimlessly in between jumping rope and in between doing burpees and stuff like that, because you'll be fatigued, and then you're kind of messing with the mechanism that you're trying to utilize this for, which is to be a little more explosive. Just a few, get familiar with each one. Just try to really relax. Like if you haven't jumped in a while, just really try to get yourself to sort of relax. You'll be a lot better at it than you think. So just always make sure you're picking your feet up. You don't have to do a box jump either. You could literally just jump in the air. A really good way to maybe work on this without the fear of like, fuck, I'm gonna kill myself in a box, or you don't have the pads. We have padded boxes, which is really nice. If you just have, you know, one height and the box is a little high, then you can simply work on, you know, doing some touches in a rack like this. Both of these are like the same height, but I could literally, if I wanted to, I could, you know, I mean, there's just so many ways to do all this stuff, right? I could literally go boom, right? And now I have something low, kaboom, kaboom. If I want it to be a little higher, I can just go to the bar, boom. If I want to be higher than just hitting my fingers on there, I can try to get my palms on there, right? So there's just a lot of ways, so many different ways of jumping. Here we go. All right, doing a little bit of twisty poo stuff. So all of us that have kind of lived in this plane of like benching, squatting, deadlifting, you know, feet are planted on a deadlift, feet are planted on a squat, and there's not really much rotation of the body. Just take an opportunity to do some movements where maybe there is a little bit more spin, maybe there is a little rotation. So with this one, what's nice is as I go to do this movement, I can lean to this side. Okay, so your body moves in so many different ways. Why not explore a bunch of them at the same time? And so I can move this way. I can also turn this way and bend the knees a little bit, okay? So my shoulders are here, and I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna go this way. As I go this way, I don't wanna just like use my body weight and kind of do this, you know, little kind of cheater version. I want to actually take my head, put my head from this being over this foot to being over that foot as I bring this across. Get the stomach tight, try to kind of flex that stomach kind of down and in. The other side. And try to flex your butt on this left leg as I come across. Flex. As I come across, I'm gonna flex my butt. And I can kind of almost make it where I'm all the way this way here, and I'm coming across and I'm almost pushing all the way here. You think about it, you get in these like low positions. This is where somebody might have just released a ball, you know, throwing from third plate to first base in a game, right? So I'm flexing the butt on this leg back here to try to drive across the body. Go here. And again, we're gonna do a similar thing. We're gonna go from this side of our body to this other side of our body. We're gonna go from one side to the other. You guys have seen Tyson do this over the years when he gets himself coiled up on one side and he just drills someone with a hook. But then you're good for like the straight right, and you can kind of keep flowing off of that. Well, like in baseball, when you go to throw, we end up in a lot of these positions. We're going from here to produce as much force as possible. So you can train some of this a little bit in the gym with some weights. We're here, we're on this side. This is not necessarily mimicking like a punch. I'm not trying to say that this is a way for fighters to like increase their strength on a punch or something, but this is just a good movement, period. Again, we want to go from being on this side of our body to the other side, but we also want to rotate the rib cage. And what you'll start to feel and learn is that like the ribs can rotate or the hips can rotate. So there's the hips, and then there's like, you can almost wring yourself out. You can go hips this way, and then kind of hard to do, but I can go hips this way and then shoulders the other. And it's actually very difficult to do, but the more athletic you are and the more in tune with some of these things you are, the easier it will be. We're here. You might notice one side stiffer than the other. That's pretty normal. This is not supposed to be explosive. This is supposed to be methodical. You actually take this arm and you want to like pull, like not just here, but I want to pull down and in because you're trying to really wind this other side up, just as if we were moving, right? If I'm going to move off of here, it's best that I'm not stuck over here, because now I'm in a weird spot. It's hard to push off. I want to be over here and maybe leaned forward a little bit, have this ass all revved up to go. And the way I'm going to do that is through not just the extremities of the lower body, but also the upper body. Boom. And I get over in here and I flex this lat on this side. Feels crazy. Once you do this kind of stuff, what you'll see and find is that as you're going through, again, I could just kind of like haphazardly do like a wood chop. That is not what this exercise is. It might look like a wood chop, and we can call it a wood chop, but you want to go through it in a different way. You want to be here. You want to actually use the muscles in your stomach and really rotate and pressurize everything. So the idea isn't to sit here and pause and like fight for some sort of stability. The idea is to really work on almost trying to move your body around and with the object. So it's not just about me moving this thing this way, but it's also about me moving my body correctly. And sometimes with a wood chop, you just see someone kind of doing this. And that might be okay, that might be a decent exercise, but I think it's more effective when we go here and we learn how to move the body around the equipment too. So you might see me like man, he's kind of only moving his head. I'm not really trying to move my head. I'm actually just trying to move my hips, but because my range of motion in my hips isn't great, it's hard for me to keep my head here. To try to illustrate or tell you how crazy that feels is like impossible. You have to do it yourself to know. Again, like things like curls and some of these things are great, but we can also do them quite differently if we think about moving our body into them That might look crazy, it might look weird, whatever you might want to say about it, but I can row this with going my lat and my bicep, right? Or I can just keep here and I can rotate this way. Or I can try to, as I go to contract with the lat, I can try to rotate that way. And it has a different impact on the lat. I can rotate here, I can rotate here. It's all a little bit weird, but what I can tell you is it feels amazing. It feels really good inside the structure of your body. A couple jumps. So we're not doing a lot of reps. So it's gonna be bing, boom, pow. And that'll probably be it. Bing, boom, pow. Let's not forget the value of being able to jump down from something. It's, a lot of people that are, 48, 49, 50 years old, jumping down from something, if they're up on a curb and they were gonna jump down, they might kind of eyeball it and say, you know what, I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna go down like real safe, because over time the body gets really stiff. But if we practice these things, we can keep these things more available to us and continue to have these options. I want to welcome in Miles. He's entered the chat. And, he's like, I don't understand why this guy's doing all this stuff. He's like, I could jump up on that thing so easy. And he likes to show off. All right, so here we go. So maybe two cycles of it. Here we go. So now I'll see, maybe I can do it a little cleaner, but that's basically the way it looks. Catch yourself from each fall, and just keep resuming your jump. What's the most awkward for me is like what to do with my arms, sort of, because I just haven't been practicing these things that much. So here we go. There you go. And then at the end, when you're up here, make sure your last one's still a good one. So, boom. A little pop and move on to the next thing. I'm going to try these offset. Give a different challenge to the body. Good, we did 5 that way. Do 5 this way. Hopefully, you can start to learn what I'm trying to teach you here. You can basically decentralize your fitness. You can work out whatever way that you want. Once you learn the rules, you can learn how to bend them, and you can learn how to break them. Start to understand the body and understand the system, we can start to do all kinds of weird, different stuff. And for me, as I was mentioning earlier, I'm not big into I currently don't stretch for 45 minutes a day or anything like that, but I am periodically mixing in some stretching where I can, and having something like this in front of me gives me a place to disperse some of the energy. So, as an example, if I go to stretch downward like this, and I go to reach for the ground or whatever, I can figure out touching the ground if I really need to. Knees might be bent a little bit or whatever, right? But gravity is kind of kicking my ass, and the hamstrings are tight, and so I'll end up in these kind of weird positions. When I have something to block the energy, like this base block here, or anything, doesn't matter what it is, could be use a chair at your house or whatever, it could be anything. Now, when I go here, I can still get into the hamstrings. The hamstrings are still tight and kind of activated, and now I can practice going from here to here much easier in a much more gentle fashion. I can floss, right? I'm flossing. There is nothing, there is zero that's dangerous about this for me and for where I'm at. It's not an overstretch. I'm not hanging out in that position for a long time. I can get into some of the groin and some of these other areas. I can move in and out of it. And it can even be, literally it can be that I'm doing, some like Cossack squats or something, right? Where I'm trying to shift from one side to the other. Probably easier to use the base block. Sometimes it's easier to use a weight. So I can go here and I can kind of shift this with me. And I can go here. Maybe I can hold both of them even. But I'm showing you guys stuff. I literally just made this up right now. And I'm not saying that like I've just discovered something great. I'm just saying that empower yourself to learn as much as you can so that you too can make decisions to be able to literally do whatever you want with your workout. You find your strengths and you allow those to be underhand pitches that make you feel really good. And you find your weaknesses and you are humble enough to know that if you work on them slowly but surely over time, those weaknesses will get better and better and better. And maybe they'll always be a weakness, and that's okay. I think that we have this idea of somebody has this weakness, they don't have super strong hamstrings. Now they're just going to focus on their hamstrings are going to be their strength. It doesn't usually work that way. A quad dominant person like Joe Sullivan, he's a squatter. He's not a deadlifter. Doesn't mean he can't improve his deadlift, but he's not a deadlifter. He's not Kaylor Willem. He's not Jeremy Avila. He's not some of these guys that can. He's not Ed Cohn. He's not, Ed Cohn was built for all of it, right? He's the GOAT. But the weakness that you have is something that could be brought up, and it's going to take time, and it's going to be probably pretty annoying. So we're going to go right back through this circuit one more time. I feel this training my spine, which feels a lot different than just training your back. So for those of you that have had back issues, you might want to try some movements like this. If you have severe back pain and stuff like that, it might take you a while to work your way into something like this. And you might have to start super light, but to me, when I say it works my spine more than my back, it's not localized to the lower back, where that's where a lot of people have pain. I'm talking about, like, I feel this through the whole chain. I really feel it in my whole body, but I feel the spine getting like nourishment, getting a lot of movement that's just not normal for me. Because you guys have seen me walk, you've seen me on my 10-minute walks, I'm stiff, right? And so I kind of walking like I got something up my butt. But I've been working on trying to walk where my shoulders will lower, so I get in these different positions, right? And my arms are loose. My arms are sort of like stuck to my body. My legs are like, if we had, sorry, Miles, if somebody was putting me together with like some Play-Doh or something, it's like I'm overly stuck together. And I've even heard people describe this, people in the medical field and people with PhDs and people who can speak on this really well. Jordan Shallow being one of them, who was here yesterday, he was saying, yeah, like a lot of times somebody's body becomes like all one chunk. And so for me, my ass and my back are all one thing. It's a bass. It's sort of just like slammed together. And so when I go to move like one part, everything moves. It's like from here to here, I'm like a trash can. and it doesn't want to move really well. It's wound very tight. And it's getting better, and it's moving better, but that's still in me. And so I'm trying to get the shoulders to move a little bit better, get the body to move a little bit better, get even the stride to open up a little bit, because my steps are usually very short, which is kind of an indicator that maybe I'm not using my glutes. But the David Weck, the head over foot stuff, is super important. If I walk right at you here, as I'm walking straight towards you, we can veer off this way a little bit, head over foot, head over foot. Why does David Weck want us to do this? So we have good balance all the time, right? So that you're perfectly balanced. If I wanted to, it could take off into like when you run, you're gonna run that way. It's not good to just use, one person as evidence of this, but watch a sprinter, watch a really high level sprinter. Not all of them, all of the time do this, but a lot of them do it. And Usain Bolt is one of the better examples of it. And again, I'm not saying that that's what made him the fastest. Like, there's so many other things that go well beyond the scope of this video to talk about why he was the fastest. But he very much so is rocking a ton when he's sprinting at these incredibly high speeds. And so we start to slow ourselves down and we're walking. A good way just to kind of keep that spine active and to keep it fluid and to keep it moving is to maybe not walk around like Ram Man from He-Man, who was my favorite. Ram Man, he had these crazy like traps. But instead, walking like maybe you just like dunked on somebody or something like that. A little bit more fluid. Whoops. Can use the weight as like a counterbalance to be able to get into good, like almost like a lunge. Lunges aren't my favorite. They usually kind of hurt, so I should probably work on doing more of them. But because I have this counterweight, there's zero pain. And normally, you're not going to see me on this angle here in a squat. I did this with Ben Patrick a while back, where I did it with a reverse band set up out of a rack. And I showed him how I could hack squat really proficiently by having a counter weight, a reverse band. And I think I want you to take your fitness seriously, but I want you to open up the playbook a bit. Like, it's okay to get distracted and then all of a sudden start doing a different exercise. There's zero things wrong with that. So that felt good to do that on that side. So I did a few there, right? So now I'll get a few in here. Let's see if we can get that knee forward even more. Flex the butt on the back side there, and that back leg. You can even kind of stick that shoulder out. The more that this moves, the more that the shake strap moves, the more it helps me get back up, because the more weight that's loaded into here. And talk about knees over toes. Look at my back leg. Watch where that goes. I'm here. Your knee literally can't get any further over your toe than that. Whew. It knocks you silly when you get it right. But flexing the butt on that backside is really a critical piece of that. Let's see. I am going to lower the weight and do the punchy. Left shoulder low, left shoulder high. Left shoulder high, left shoulder low. 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 If you watch somebody, you watch Conor McGregor punch that bag that they have sometimes at like a fair, and it tells you your pounds of pressure. You watch him go to punch it, and maybe we can find the clip of it. When he punches it, he doesn't go, he first of all, he uses his stronger hand. Makes a lot of sense. Immediately, he goes to his strong side. Strong side's back so you can load it better. The strong side's not here because it can make the distance of the whole thing awkward, and it's hard. How do I load? I can load this hip, right? I can load this hip when it's forward, but man, when it's this way, I can really wind up, right? And so he looks at the bag, he sizes it up, and right away, it's not just this hand. I think we have a tendency in sport to think about the dominant arm. But the first thing that he does is this thing goes way up. I think he even throws his elbow up. And then he goes, wah, boom, and he just smashes the fuck out of this thing. It's really beautiful. It's a beautiful demonstration of what I'm talking about. These tilts, you'll see them everywhere. If you're paying attention, basketball players, MLB players. MLB, it happens all the time. It's the best example of it. The pitcher on every single pitch. He can't throw the ball without this going on. And this stuff's just, the people in sports know about it, but I think your average person doesn't know it or doesn't see it that often. They see it, but they don't see it the way that I think they should. So now, right shoulder's high, left shoulder's low, and we're gonna reverse, boom. When do we ever really practice this? Except for in sport, right? And then what about when we're out of sport? What about when you're no longer doing sports? You can actually take this elbow on this side and you can sort of throw it. Not to be done explosively, really, but controlled. You see, do it. Whoa. There you go. And you kind of see how the muscular structures are kind of working within that. Back to some jumps. One of the best things for me to do here is to really not think about this too much and to really just turn it into like an activity of a little bit of play and almost like kind of hard to expect myself to be fluid with it. I haven't done it that much, but I should be able to kind of bing, 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 bing through, and we'll see if I can do that. There we go. Big cat turning into a little cat. Meow. All these movements and stuff that I'm doing, I could very easily be, deadlifting in between. Very easily be doing like other exercises that are, for power or for strength or something like that. But again, it's not the goal of today. The goal of today is a little bit more movement. Try to just do different things. You see people sometimes doing these like with kettlebells and stuff, right? I'm probably not quite advanced enough to do it with like a lot of weight. But even this presents just a different challenge. And then to try to figure out to keep both shoulders pointed towards the ground but still row. It's like I gotta think about my base more. But what about rotating and going, right? Try doing some of those dips again. Those actually the dips felt good and they felt pretty challenging. But again, just like even think about getting down on this squat, it's like I can do this and I can hang out here. I've practiced this, so I've gotten decent at it. But just with these guys right here, it changes the game. I can now sit here for longer. I could hang out here longer. I could stretch in a way that maybe I couldn't do. And it's also giving me like stability. Like I feel more comfortable having these here. Again, if I fall, it's like super short fall. I could do that Russian thing. Hey, hey, hey. They do it with their arms folded. How the fuck do they do that? Is that Russian? Did I say that right? All right. Some dips. My shoulder does not like that. It's part of the reason why we're doing it. As you come to the top, try to flex your lats a bit to drive your shoulders downward. Whoa, that feels crazy. Again, he's getting all kinds of cool positions, you know. I mean, I can do that without the weight there or the things there, but once I grab a hold of this, nice and safe, right, and I go, the end of your breath is oftentimes the end of your range of motion. Pay attention to that throughout your day. The end of your breath is oftentimes the end of your range of motion. So when you go, oh, to pick something up in the morning, see if you can redo that and go. You get stuck and you go, oh, go. It's a way. I still am holding my breath all the time, still breathing erratically, often. I've been working on it for a few years now. It's getting a lot better. It's just going to take time. You may notice you do it when you're on your phone. Maybe you saw a post I made and you're mad about it. and you notice that your fist is like clenched or some shit, try to it's amazing, you know, everything's like interpretation, right? My body feels that this stretch is a lot, where for somebody else, they could get into a much deeper position and have it not feel like anything. But it's just the inputs my body has gone through over the years versus somebody else. And then sometimes my interpretation of it, it's kind of like having someone, like I'm trying to teach someone how to bench, and they're saying, man, this 135 is really killing my elbows. Well, they're not strong enough to have, you know, to use heavier weights yet, but they can also work on having an interpretation, and the interpretation is this. My body is really responding to the bench press workouts I've been doing. I'm feeling it in my elbows. They're getting stronger. Yeah, when those tendons and ligaments kind of feel worn out, I mean, sometimes they are literally injured or inflamed, but it's also the body's process of working on laying down some new tissue and sending a message of like, hey, we need to get stronger. And so whenever you're working on strength or speed or anything, there's going to be discomfort. A lot of what I'm doing today too can also be utilized as part of a warm-up. If you don't like some of the stuff that I did today and you think it's like sissy, stupid stuff, then that's fine. I agree with you. But you can do it as part of a warm-up into getting into your main workout. So you can do some of those twists and some jumps. And this, like, it's so weird how good this feels. Probably doesn't look like anything when you're watching it. Kind of similar to the elephant walks. I think all this kind of stuff brings about some really good like body awareness. You start to get to learn how your body moves and maybe how it doesn't move, you know? Back over here to this guy. Oh shit. Now that my body's like more warmed up, like this feels great. Feels incredible. Let me actually move this setup this way so I'm not so reliant on the weight. I have found at home that it's nice to have something in front of me just in case I do feel like I'm going to fall back. But hunker-in stool, you got to get one. You can use my code marksmellybell. Huge fan of this product. The products that I'm a fan of, the ones that you see me hawking, the ones that you see me talking about, I do get a percentage for it, so that is part of it, to get reward for drawing a lot of attention to a lot of these businesses. By the way, speaking of that, congrats to Hostage Tape for partnering up with the UFC. Hostage Tape and UFC are now together. That's crazy because I've been with those guys from the jump, right from the get-go. Other companies too, Kai's, Piedmontese, they're regularly advertising on Joe Rogan, and I don't believe I know. I'm a huge part of that. These companies have told me. But trying to draw attention to some of these companies is because these companies are awesome, and what they can bring you and what they can do for you is fantastic. This hunker-in stool is no different. This is a thing. Like this thing is sick. I'm not going to ever talk about or ever try to give you a code for something that doesn't work. The carnivore crisps. I mean, that shit is unbelievable. They have grass-fed, grass-finished meat that's like dried. It's like different than beef jerky that's crispy, And yes, it's going to be expensive. There's a price to pay for that high a quality of stuff. But they have top sirloin, they have lamb, they have ribeye, they have they got pork, they got a ton of different stuff. They even have, I think, like liver chips and stuff, which maybe aren't as popular with some people because of the flavor. They have stuff for your dog. They make little sliders for your dog. Unbelievable. And then they also make one of my favorite things. They have a powdered, desiccated liver, kidney, heart, spleen, pancreas, and I dump that into like coffee, and I put that into my steak shakes. Like there's already some of that in steak shake, but I like getting a little boost, a little extra of it. Some of you might not love the flavor of it, but it's providing you with a lot of nutrients, and I think it's really important. You know, sometimes I'm lowering the amount of energy that I'm consuming, and lowering the calories, lowering the macronutrients, and because of that, it's good to kind of spike up some of those micros, I think. Try to move this out of the way so we don't have any. There we go. My wife sees me doing all this shit like in our living room, like I'm doing myofascial release and I'm squatting on this thing. And she's always like, what the fuck? But a good way to get your woman behind you is to make a lot of money. Then they'll just leave you alone because what you're doing is working. If you're just a bum and you're not making any money, then it's going to be hard to have your cable crossover machine in your living room. Whew. Oh, we got one more movement, and then we's done. Let's see here. We got 20 pounder. This is going to be kind of hard. I missed some of my jump rope, and I got to sneak in another set of that. I will not allow Nsima to be the only one around here with nice tits. Not going to happen. You can pick something to kind of jump over if you want. Oop. Should probably just stick with learning how to jump rope first. Such a great exercise. Like, I'm already kind of blown up from it. Just doing a little bit of reps. Keep working on it. How was I doing this? I was doing it this way. I need to actually see. Woo! I forgot how I was doing these. I gotta look. I think I was taking a step, but I don't remember which way. Left hand. And here. I think I was going. No, left. Trying to figure this out. Is that left? Yeah. I can't go forward this way. kind of makes your brain go a little haywire too. People are asking how I mix all this stuff in, and this is how it's done. You know, there's not nearly as much work as you think. It's just doing stuff while I'm doing other stuff is really all that it is. And so in a given week, there's a lot. In a given day, there's not that much. However, some days it's sprinkled in, and it's sprinkled in pretty thick. So some days there could be an hour lift session and an hour run. But most of the time, it's more like 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, and that might equal 30 to 45 minutes of work. 2 days ago, my friend Jesse Burdick was here, and I didn't have quite the amount of time to run as I wanted. And so what I did was, I was gonna do an 8-minute run. I warmed up a little bit, did an 8-minute run, and it kind of sucked. So I rested 2 minutes, and I did one more 8-minute run. And that ended up being a great workout. We were done with the podcast, before the podcast that we did, I did some arms, I did some shoulders. Then even after the podcast, I got a little more lifting in too. So I really microdose stuff in a lot. And even more recently, doing a little bit of stuff at home, sometimes at my home gym, or sometimes on the Peloton. I have a Peloton bike, and I've been doing some workouts on that. But like, if you see me doing a lot of things, I'm doing a lot of things, a lot of exercises, but not a crazy amount of sets of each one. This is an example. This is like set number 1 of this that I did for today. And I use this thing every week, but sometimes it's just 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Sometimes it's a little longer, it just depends. So the real key to, I think, mixing things in is the intensity at which you do things. So if you want to spike the intensity and have the intensity of workouts and other things be high, then you have to do them less frequently. If you're somebody that's intense, that's tense, that wants to like get after it every time you do something, then maybe you run twice a week and lift twice a week. Should be plenty if you're going at it hard. But for me, the way I've always played this game was over the long haul. The precaution and the things that you see me do now, the only reason why you see more of that now is just because I took out a lot of the other heavy lifting. I was always doing these things. I was always looking for things like this. And I might not have done them as often due to time constraints because the squats, the bench, deadlift took longer. But I'm dragging the sled for, 25 years or so. Kettlebells, I've utilized those for a long time. A lot of the stuff you see, I used to stretch a lot with bands. More like, I guess, like an active form of stretching where I would kind of get in and out of some movements. But I've been doing like a lot of stuff for like self-care and management for years and years and years. You're just starting to see more of it now because I can't do the other fancy stuff as much anymore. I don't want to, I should say. That's the right word. I certainly could. I could decide tomorrow that I want to squat 700 raw and it would happen in a year. I have a lot of strength, and that's always been something that's just kind of sitting there. Figure out the coordination of this guy again. Nope, that's not right. It's left. If you go to do something and you're off balance, it's a good thing You're learning it. Don't get frustrated. It's just these inputs are different. They're newer, right? So it's gonna feel weird. Those of you that have elbow issues, elbow pain, try to do ranges of motion that get you into longer, elongated positions here. And then also, another great exercise is any sort of curl with your arms back behind you. Incline curl comes to mind. But you could even set this on a low pulley and curl right here while the shoulder is in this position here. So that would just be, this guy's down here. You want to try to fix or get into some elbow pain and fix the base cause of it. A lot of times because you can't open up your shoulder. And so a lot of energy is dumped into that elbow. So a movement like this, incline curls is another good one. And then you want to think, how do we elongate the tricep? You bring this guy up there, and maybe getting some movements where you're trying to really attack the tricep from different angles. And you might need to move this up and down to try to find what works great. But if this hurts, like this might hurt your elbow, you can see the limited range. I'm all stuck together, right? If this hurts your elbow, lighten up the weight. And then last but not least, fuck your elbow. Okay, last set. This is a great movement right here with a dumbbell. I've never tried it with anything other than a dumbbell. I suppose you might be able to use a kettlebell or something, but it's kind of going here and here, here, here. Throw that kettlebell or throw that dumbbell, throw it away, catch it, come back up. Whew. Gets you winded. Left side. I think this leg is back. You'll hear. So it's throw. Left leg is back. Left arm is through. Right leg is forward. Okay, you're here. Here. Whoa, that was great. Just going to finish up on this. Couch stretch that I designed with Ben Patrick. You just kick your foot up back here. Got a pad. Just kick your foot up back here. Got this pad that you put your kneecap on. Drive that knee down and in there. And I like to move around on stuff. I don't personally love like just a flat static. I personally like to move around, but do what feels good and do what you think is going to be good for you. But this position here, it's easy to kind of get stuck and be like this. You want to really try to come up. That's what these poles are for. You got these little areas, kind of put the posts in, and you can sneak some rotation into this bitch, and we really got something. So you can go kind of move around, sort of leverage off these posts. You're making sure that you're flexing the butt cheek on that back side. This side that's back here, you want to, you don't want to just be here. Like if we're just here, we're hiding from the stretch. You want to actually take the body, go here, and not arch up, but see if you can pull all this up and flex your booty. You can do different shit with your foot too. And that back there is adjustable as well. I'll switch over to the other side. I designed this because I've seen so many people stretch up against the wall. And I'm like, who the fuck can do that? I'm always like, that's not for me. I can't do that. Just way too uncomfortable to try to stretch against the wall. Put your knee down on the concrete or on a mat. I know some people put a pad down, but it's still half these people that show you this shit on the internet, Ben included, they can bend their bodies in some crazy ways. So sometimes even a regression of what they're doing, you're like, bro, get a hold of yourself. I can't do that. So it's nice to have these dowels, I guess you'd call them, to move in these different positions. Get that quad to open up, and hopefully some of this stuff helps open up my stride. And then also, let's not forget, you could get in here, and I've done over the last couple weeks some single leg work in here, and it's beautiful. Really easy to use. That pad gives you a stopping point to go off of. I designed this too so that you can get a little weird with it. And you can do both legs at the same time, which can be a little tricky. But now you can really try to rotate those hips forward. Trying to hump forward a little bit. And let's not forget that, like I said, this adjusts. So if you're pretty mobile, you might want to jack that thing up pretty high. And then now we can I like to actually let the knee swing underneath. Watch the knee, it will swing kind of underneath, and then it goes to the pad. It's almost like you get almost like the very bottom of your quad onto the pad, and that's slightly different stretch. There you go. That's the couch stretch with my boy Ben Patrick, ATG. Should be out pretty soon. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. I hope you liked the workout, even though it was a little different. In the comments, I would like to know what you guys would like to see from me, because on my Instagram, where I've been just sharing all kinds of different stuff, half of you I think are loving it, another half or maybe aren't loving it, but there has certainly been a lot of new followers that are following along. Some of the stuff that I'm sharing is simply to show you guys, I have always been a fan of free thinking. I've always been a fan of people thinking outside the box. So you may have seen some of the stuff from Jack Cruz, You may have seen some of the reposts that I'm sharing. I also don't take things so seriously. I think in fitness, we have a tendency to overthink these things. We have a tendency to take these things way too seriously. I do think that there are things in your life that you should take seriously, and managing your weight and managing your health is definitely one of them. But in your pursuit and in the process of doing all this, I think we also have to have, we got to have a good time, right? We have to have, at least for me, maybe I shouldn't speak for everybody, but to me, I think it's always had to be fun, and it's always been about fun. And so if I make up a weird video about sourdough bread and how it's going to burn up all your body fat, it's just me messing around. It's just me trolling on people. I don't actually believe some of these things. And some of the things that I share that are coming from people that are on my podcast, I don't endorse every word that somebody says that comes on my podcast. I enjoy the conjecture and I enjoy the conversation. But my own views, my own vantage point, that's what the podcast is for. So if you haven't been listening to the podcast, make sure you go and listen. If you're an avid listener, it means you have no life. And if you've never listened before, it also means you have no life. But in the comments, what are some things that you might want to see from me coming up? What do you want to know? Because I'll deliver it to you. I've been doing this for a really long time, and I love it. Hopefully people get that. Hopefully people see that. I authentically really like doing this. And the more that I can help you guys, the better. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later.